Certainly a tough loss for the Toledo Rockets as we welcome in Pete Seymour from the Toledo Rocket Radio Network. Pete, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
All right, it seems like every year there is one or two games that the Rockets drop that they shouldn't, and maybe the good news is you got it out of the way in September as opposed to doing it in November.
Let's start with the positives, Mark. We're positive people here. Let's start with the positives. It was a tough one to be on the sidelines for. We talked about it last week. Waldo Stadium, not an easy place to play for the Toledo Rockets, and a Western Michigan team that comes out and gives them their best each and every week. But again, we're positive people. Let's start with the positives. Defense. Big bright spot. Chris Apollonia, career high in tackles. He had 8. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren also had 8 tackles. And how about Andre Fuller? A guy with his first career interception for Toledo. He missed last season, and he's come back to a really good secondary, and he made his mark, also recovered a fumble as well. So, yeah, some positives on the defensive side of things. I think Jason Candle would be the first one to tell you offensively they need to clean a few things up. But, yeah, tough one to be a part of, but excited to see how they bounce back this week with Akron at the Glass Bowl for homecoming.
Certainly a dominant defensive effort, particularly in the first half against Western Michigan. It was a 3-0 game at the break, and I think in the second half that defense was just simply on the field a little bit too long because the offense struggled to sustain drives.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that one. And again, in the first half, they had the running game going. Chip Trainum now up to 10th in the FBS in rushing yards, number 1 in the Mid-American Conference. He's the real deal, a 63-yard touchdown run. But you're 100% correct, Mark. There's so much talent on that defense, but you're on the field so long, kind of like they were week 1 against Kentucky. It's just hard to sustain that. You would like to think, man, something goes different just here or there a little bit. The outcome of the game's different. And again, I think Coach Candle would be the first one to tell us the exact same thing, that, hey, one first down here, one conversion here, this is a different ball game.
And you mentioned this last week, this Western Michigan defense, they're really good on the edges, and that's really where they were giving Toledo some troubles.
100%, and we talked about it last week, and what they do in every season I've seen Western Michigan, they recruit these hybrid guys. These aren't these big defensive ends. They play defensive end, outside linebacker type roles, but these aren't huge guys you think of. You think of, 6'5", 310 as a defensive lineman, or 6'3", 295. No, these guys are 6'2", 6'3", same body type, and they are quick. And I think that gave the tackles from Toledo a little bit of trouble. And yeah, give credit where it's due, though. The Western Michigan defense, after Toledo, I thought, threw a blow that may have turned the game on, hey, they came right back with their own punches. So give credit where it's due, and the defensive line and the linebackers, front 7, legit for the Broncos.
Offensively, what can they do to get more consistency, to sustain drives? Because the one touchdown was the long run from Tranum, so they didn't really sustain drives. How do you fix that going forward?
I think you fix that going forward by, first and foremost, running the ball, which, I mean, that's their MO this year. Trip Trainum's the real deal. Kenji Christian's the real deal. Again, though, the front of Western Michigan was very confusing. They were running a lot of different twists. They were running a lot of different formations, and they were confusing the offense for Toledo. So I think the key to that is, get back to the basics, run the ball. The offensive line this week will definitely be challenged to help sustain those drives by running the football. But again, get it out to your playmakers in space. I was able to talk to the wide receiver coach, R.J. Fleming, a few weeks ago, and he just talked about the fact of, hey, I'm going to bet on my guy over anybody else. You get that ball to Junior Vandeross 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, he's going to make a guy or two miss. So I think you got to get your playmakers out in space, but again, run the football, sustain some drives, and the Rockets are going to be looking for a big-time bounce-back win, not just from last week, but from last year with the Zips coming to town.
That's right. Rockets are 2-2. The 2 losses on the road, 2 wins at home, and they back at home this Saturday taking on the Zips. And as we alluded to at the top of this discussion, you had the inexplicable loss to Akron in November last season. That was a game that they should have won. They didn't, and now you got Akron 1-3 coming into town.
Yeah, and an Akron team, they picked up a huge win against Duquesne, played some really tough teams in the front part of their schedule. They come in 1-3, but they have a very productive running back, has a lot of yards on the ground this year, a bunch of receivers with a whole bunch of different catches. Talking to Coach Candler earlier in the week, he really expressed containing the guys on the outside and stopping the run game. And yeah, they're rolling right now. Again, a monster win over Duquesne for their first win of the year, but if history proves true, the Rockets are going to come out this Saturday and be ready to go in front of the homecoming crowd.
First 2 weeks of the season, Akron scored zip. No points against Wyoming, no points against Nebraska. They did put up some points against Duquesne. Obviously, Duquesne's an FCS opponent. Is this Toledo defense chomping at the bit to take on this Akron offense now?
Yeah, I think absolutely, especially after last year. And you even look at a guy like Dan Bolden, who was playing last year and is still on the staff at UT as a GA, and what this game means to, of course, not just the Rockets, but for Ohio in general. You always want to win the games in the state. You see that with Bowling Green and the recruiting efforts. You always want to take care of business. And Akron, a team, again, they're going to give the Rockets their best shot. It just seems like week in and week out, and since I started covering Toledo, every team in the MAC gives the Rockets their best shot. And a lot of the times the Rockets are ready for it, but it's going to be a hungry Akron team coming into the Glass Bowl, and they have confidence. Again, they're going to look back at the tape from last year and say, hey, what did we do good? And there was a lot of stuff they did do good, even pulling that one at the end of the game. But for Toledo, clean up the mistakes. There was a decent amount of them on the offensive side of things, some on the defensive side. They clean those up, and I think they can take care of business on homecoming.
Yeah, Rockets get Akron on Saturday, and then they have the week off before everything starts pointing down I-75 for the big matchup with Bowling Green. Pete, Seymour, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Mark. Go Rockets.